It's Juvenis.
Alright, no matter the speed we want to drive for TV, you know if you kill who they wash am. This one fine, this one fine. I Christmas take gather load for bus stop. My papa say who they use coconut break here, no the shop inside. Person when borrow person should go party, no the dance anyhow. Listen to me. If you are listening to me right now or you are watching me right now, it simply means you are logged down to JuvenisTV. Keep watching JuvenisTV, subscribe to JuvenisTV, and don't forget, get Juvenis magazine. Don't forget what the white man said. The best way to hide anything for a black man is in a book. Let's prove them wrong. Because you stop leading the day you stop reading. My name is the Soccer, the Otuta one of comedy. Do you know me the one of Adejokbe King? Don't know me what of Nigerian comedy. The Leeway minister, the bishop of Bokahol. Let's go there. God bless you till you come your way next time.
To respond to some of the statements made by the defeated PDP candidate, presidential candidate, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar yesterday. First, on behalf of the All Progressive Congress, we want to congratulate all Nigerians, particularly those who voted, particularly those who didn't even vote, for defending democracy and celebrating democracy as they did last Saturday. As a proud Nigerian, that for all those who thought that Saturday was going to be a declaration of war, like as I had argued, and I believe many people on my party platform had argued, election is not another word for war. It is a day to celebrate democracy. It is the only day in a democracy in which everybody is equal, rich or poor, illiterate or professor. Everybody is the same. And I'm happy that Nigerians have spoken and they did everything to maintain the peace, in spite of the fact that there were some elements who, in spite of the efforts of the security agencies, conducted themselves in a way that led to violence, and unfortunately, some of our countrymen and women lost their life in the process. Like President Muhammadu Buhari said yesterday, we join him in commiserating with the families of those who lost their life, and we hope and pray that God will grant their loved ones the fortitude to bear the loss. But I also believe that government must do everything possible to identify those who are behind those killings and bring them to justice. Each time, hoodlums and ballot box snatchers maim and kill in trying to distort the will of the Nigerian people, and they go away without anybody being prosecuted or jailed, the culture of impunity is threatened and the fear of the rule of law is weakened. I believe now that the president has been sworn in, he now has a duty to call on the Inspector General of Police and indeed all the security agencies to identify all those behind those killings. No Nigeria deserves to die just because he wanted to go and vote. I have already done that before, but we want to reaffirm it, that we of the All Progressive Congress, we congratulate our candidate, President Muhammadu Buhari, for the renewed mandate. I believe that what happened last Saturday was a referendum between a man of integrity and a man of doubtful integrity. And Nigerians have resolved the issue satisfactorily, and we believe Nigerians have spoken. They spoke the mind of the people of Nigeria. However, yesterday, the PDP candidate who lost and who was a signatory to peace accord and who went into this race knowing fully well that Nigeria cannot possibly elect two presidents. Only one president will emerge. Having suffered defeat, which I believe he deserved, he went on to say that he rejected the result and adduced a very laughable argument as a basis for his decision. But I have found out that in this country, when you recycle lie over and over and over, so people begin to think that there is truth in it. The conventional wisdom is that there is no smoke without fire. But in Nigeria politics, there can be huge smoke, and yet there is no fire at all. Now, I want to speak to some facts as we know them, and I challenge you as members of the media to cross-check from your own records as a way of enabling yourselves to debunk effortlessly the falsehood that Atiku Abubakar tried to parrot yesterday in order to discredit what otherwise represents a very, very peaceful election in spite of those isolated incidents. And I'm happy that the international community, as well as the Nigerian observers, are unanimous that this election, and no election anywhere in the world, is perfect. We have people in some part of the Western world who are even leaders of democracy, who are still conducting a query into how their own last election was conducted. So it's not about whether this election was perfect. It is whether it is substantially free and fair, and whether indeed it represents the will of the Nigerian people. I am convinced, as INEC has announced, that this election reflects the will of the Nigerian people, and that for us is something for which we beat our chest, and we congratulate the great people of Nigeria. Atiku Abubakar argued that he described what he called statistical impossibilities, and he claimed that he has had the two zones where he is strongest, that votes in those areas were smaller, and that the margin of victory was also small. Now, he specifically referred to the South-South and the Southeast. I want to refresh the mind of Nigerians, and indeed all those who are interested, by just rolling out the voting pattern since 1999, the number of votes that PDP that were casted or allegedly casted in favor of PDP. In 1999, which was the election, fourth general election, conducted by the military government under the leadership of His Excellency General Abubakar Abdulsalam, President Obasanjo won that election with 18.7 million votes. Remember, this election was conducted under the watch of the military government. But by 2003, when PDP assumed full incumbency, and when President Obasanjo began to describe general elections as a do or die, and when Atiku Abubakar was the vice president to President Olusegun Obasanjo, they catapulted their votes from 18.7 million to 24.4 million. This cannot be explained whether by reasons of population growth or even popularity of the party. If we recall, the feelings of Nigerians are just reviewing editorials in various Nigerian newspapers. In 2007, incidentally, that was an election in which I also participated at the level of state governorship in Edo State. You all recall the massive rigging of that election. And PDP was able to increase their numbers from 2.4 million in 2003 to 24.4 million in 2003 to 24.6 million in 2007. As I'm sure many of you will recall, various electoral tribunals set up to review the outcome of those elections by those who disputed the elections. In many states, elections were nullified by election petition tribunal. And in my own case, I'm one of the very few candidates who went to court and who got my mandate reviewed, and my mandate was restored through the court of law after PDP had ruthlessly rigged me out. You know, Edo used to play host to perhaps one of the most, will I say, infamous or famous godfathers. And I will leave it at that. By 2011, in the election that in 2011, PDP scored 22.5 million votes. But by 2015, when the card reader was introduced, because between 1999 and 2015, INEC relied on manual voting and manual accreditation. Those were the days in which PDP philosophy was rig them out and let them go to court. But with the introduction of card readers, which most part of the country were obliged to use, PDP fortune dropped to 12.8 million. Yes, PDP votes dropped to 12.8 million. And of course, you recall that even at that, there were different result sheets from Delta State. They were revised 3 times. I'm sure you have not forgotten that the results from Rivers State were revised upward over and over, to the extent that the professor who was the returning officer was unable to read those figures at the collation center in Abuja. However, because the card reader was substantially used in most parts of the country, PDP suffered a huge loss and their vote dropped to 12.8 million. And of course, in 2019, which is the correct one, PDP scored 11.1 million votes, again courtesy of the card reader. Now let us look at Buhari's scorecard. President Muhammadu Buhari, as the candidate of the CPC, a state that only had one state government, and that was Nasarawa State. President Muhammadu Buhari scored in 2011 12.2 million votes. And with the alliance formed by APC, CPC, alliance by ACN, CPC, AMPP, and a part of ABGA, and later reinforced by what was then referred to as the new PDP. We contested the election on APC platform, and President Muhammadu Buhari scored in 2015 15.4 million votes, again courtesy of the card reader, which did not allow people to write results as they deemed fit. Now, in 2019, President Muhammadu Buhari got fewer votes than he got in 2015. And from INEC figures, we secured 50.2 million votes. So when Alhaji Atiku Abubakar talks about statistical impossibilities, I don't want to call him a poor student of statistics. But talking about statistical impossibilities, I invite you to reflect on the total number of new registered voters. Don't forget that the whole idea of periodic review of or reopening of voter registration is essentially meant to enable those who have become 18 years and above between the past election and the last one. And everybody knows that the average population growth rate in Nigeria is averaging 3%, plus minus. If that is the average population growth rate, how do we explain that under the renewed registration exercise conducted by INEC, it is revealing how the number of people that went to register, until today, no one has explained that paradox. That whereas the average population growth rate is around 3%, in the South, the newly registered voters were 25, average 25% in South. In Southeast, it averaged about 36%. In Northwest, it averaged about 26%. And Northeast, it averaged about 28 or 29%. Now, what is the explanation for that? We all know that the whole essence of renewing voter registration is to enable younger people who have become 18 to register. So are we suggesting that Nigeria population has increased by as much as 25%, or in the case of Southeast, as much as 36%? Obviously, there were calculated attempts in some part of the country for people to do multiple registration and to have the advantage of so many, which is why you have so many PVC cards that, as we speak, have not been collected. And if report from security agencies are anything to go by, there are quite a number of persons who have been caught with hundreds or sometimes thousands of PVCs in the hands of one individual. So this explains why even when you report, as you have often done, massive turnout in our elections, and this last election, everybody agreed that the turnout was huge. Yet, when you compare the final results, add everybody together, both however people voted, the total number of those who participated in the election, you will find that they average around 30% of the registered voters. So if we were going to talk about statistical wonder, there will be a lot to talk about. But let me therefore say that if only Atiku Abubakar had taken time to properly review the performance of his political party over the years and compare them to the performance of President Muhammadu Buhari over the same period, he would have understood, he would have been clearer. Number two, to suggest that votes were suppressed in the South and the Southeast is not to be able to appreciate the damage that the resort to card readers has done to election riggers. Truth is, and this is something that you can compare, when we conducted the election in Anambra State, an isolated election, no governor secured 400,000 votes. And anyone who is familiar with the realities of Rivers State knows that if you conduct a free and fair election and you deny Periwinkle to come out and vote and return to the grave, it is impossible for them to get more than 500,000 votes. And yet, you recall, and I asked you to review your previous editorials and reports, where you had 99.9% voters turning up in Rivers State before the advent of card readers. Now, that is not possible now. The same thing goes for Delta State, where when they finish counting the votes in Delta North and Delta Central, by the time you go to the River Ride areas, that is where they throw out magical votes that always upset the actual and distort the actual voting pattern. So I think rather than Atiku thinking that rigging has come to stay, and he can't understand why the numbers don't add up, absence of massive rigging. I think he just needs to be reminded that the essence of the collective effort that have been made and the intervention of all those I can describe as genuine friends of Nigeria has been to try to improve in the electoral process such that rigging can be eliminated or at least reduced to tolerable level. Now, as I speak, we have petition that we have written to INEC, how we were rigged out in Akwa Ibom State. And it's interesting that it is PDP that is complaining about the outcome of election in Akwa Ibom State. How do you explain that INEC cancelled so many units, not only in Akwa Ibom State, in several other states, in order to be able to declare PDP candidates as winners? That is how Senator Akpabio was rigged out in Akwa Ibom State. The last point, I believe, 2 points that are worth commenting on, is that I want to remind us that when the Peace Committee, under the leadership of General Abubakar, invited political parties to commit themselves to peace and to accepting the outcome of the result, you will recall that PDP and their candidate, Atiku Abubakar, were conspicuously absent at the first meeting. Of course, following public outcry and suspicion and other pressure from their friends, they reluctantly went in and signed, append their signature to the peace accord at the office of General Abubakar, rather than where it was meant to take place. So from day one, Atiku made up his mind that unless he wins, the election is not free and fair. It is only free and fair if he is returned as the candidate. Now we ask the question, what is the value of the peace accord? It took us a lot of time. We were supposed to have gone out that day for campaign, but because of our commitment to peace and indeed to reassure Nigerians and to give people the comfort that they need, that we are not about to go to war. We are about to celebrate democracy. There is no need for anybody to be afraid. We participated fully in those peace efforts. And I'm glad that the elections have been largely peaceful. Of course, watching Atiku Abubakar yesterday, he alleged that the stock market crashed or lost about 85 billion naira in value, just on hearing that President Muhammadu Buhari has lost the election, has won the election. Now, that is twisting the facts upside down. Truth is, when Atiku started talking about his irrevocable commitment to privatize and sell NNPC, many people wondered aloud if he has not already collected deposit. When he says, even if he will die, was he going to rule Nigeria against our wish? Because democracy does not end at voting. Citizens must hold their leaders accountable for their policy choices. So when he says, even if he will die, he will sell NNPC, many believe he has already collected deposit. And so if those depositors, now seeing that it cannot be business as usual, decide to take their flight, we wish them, we don't even want them to come back. He is pleading with them, we are saying, let them remain where they are. There are also people, when Atiku promised that he was going to float the Naira, when he promised he was going to float the Naira, those who play on hot money, who just do transactions and make way through paper transactions. Of course, on hearing that President Buhari has been re-elected, who does not believe that the Naira should be floated, and not for the first time, even when he came in first as head of state, he refused this IMF prescription. about devaluing the naira. Many believe that that was part of the reason there was gang up both at home and foreign interests to have him removed as head of state. So his commitment to defending the naira, his commitment to that the 43 items that have been placed on ban will remain in force, and his commitment to ensuring that Nigeria consume what is produced in Nigeria and work consciously to eliminate importation of things that we don't need. Obviously, those who were waiting in the wing for an Atiku free market regime to come on board, for them to turn Nigeria to kalu-kalu economy, obviously they must take their flight. Nigeria doesn't need soft-hearted investors. We need genuine investors who have faith in our country and who have long-term interests in our country. We want people who will invest in reproduction, who will invest in labor-intensive industry, not those who will play on our financial system and play on our foreign exchange regime to make money without a business address. If these are the kind of businessmen I think we're talking about, the genuine Nigerians who are victims of this manipulation of financial of our foreign exchange regime and so on and so forth, I mean, we cannot but open the skies, let them fly back, and they should never return. But I believe that the genuine investors who have businesses in Nigeria, who have genuine business address, who knows the huge market potentials, a market of about 200 million people, genuine service providers, genuine manufacturers, cannot but look forward to coming to Nigeria to take advantage of our huge market. But I think it also borders on arrogance for Atiku Abubakar to suggest that our future is tied to his presidency. Atiku is destined never to be president of Nigeria. And I ask you to review his character, because I keep speaking about character during the election. Leadership is about character. Atiku's desperation is so obvious, so desperate that in 2003, it is on record, he challenged his own boss, President Olusegun Obasanjo, not to do a second term. And in the end, they fought naked at Wuse Market. Subsequently, Atiku decamped to join ACN. I was in ACN then. We offered him the ticket. Like Father Mbaka will say, he became like a big bird, like a vulture that couldn't fly. And he lost that election. Once he lost, he returned back to PDP. He contested again the primaries against, I believe it was Jonathan. Also, right. And he lost the nomination. Because he has only his interest in mind, he decamped again from PDP and returned to APC. He joined us in Lagos, rolled out the dollars, and President Muhammadu Buhari has to say to APC people, myself inclusive, I have no dollars to give. I do not have Intel or Itel. I do not have foreign account. And even if I have, I will not give. All I offer is all my heart. The APC guys who couldn't resist Atiku dollars collected those dollars and voted for Buhari as our candidate. Once he lost the nomination and he did his calculation and realized that it's highly improbable that he will be able to defeat President Muhammadu Buhari in our primaries, he again took flight and went back to PDP. Can you recount how many times he has camped, decamped, recamped, decamped? Now, such a political rolling stone, does he think that Nigerians are so insane as to think that a man who is not stable, who has no conviction, whose interest is about himself, and who has confessed that he is going to this race, according to him, to enrich his friends, that would be a possible candidate to be elected at a time like this? And for all of you who are journalists, who monitor what happened in Port Harcourt, how Atiku Abubakar got the nomination of PDP and created an upset for the traditional PDP people who had remained in PDP, come rain, come sun, come shine. You know how Atiku upsetted them by dollarizing the entire Port Harcourt community. I hear from those who have just returned from Port Harcourt that the dollars are still smelling there. So what is it that makes him have that sense of entitlement? A sense of entitlement that he must be president of Nigeria. Finally, I asked Nigerians to recognize that I had asked these questions even when we were signing the peace accord. I said, you cannot possibly deny anyone the right to dispute the outcome of an election, however free and fair. But like myself, when I believe I was cheated out, I went to court. And I mobilized my evidence. I had the benefit of very resourceful lawyers and courageous judges, and my mandate was restored. I did not resort to violence. Even though anybody who knows me knows that all my life has been a life of struggle. I did not call out workers on strike to defend my mandate. All I did was to submit to the laws of Nigeria, which says if you doubt the outcome of an election or you have cause to dispute the outcome of an election, the only lawful way open to you is to go to court. So we hope and we are looking forward to meet Alhaji Atiku Abubakar in court, and the fact will be laid bare. But if I might also dare him, we might also choose to also not cross appeal now, to cross petition, because there were many areas. Because in Adamawa State, he had already lost the election before he did some articulating magic that gave him that narrow victory in Adamawa State and in many other parts of in many other parts of the country. The last one that I think is interesting is that Atiku raised the issue. He asked rhetorically, how is it possible that in Borno or in the northeast, given the issue of insecurity and Boko Haram, how can we explain the turnout? Simple. During the 2015 election, President Jonathan, who was president on PDP platform, acknowledged that about 28 local governments were effectively under the control of Boko Haram, hosting flag in those local government areas, and told the nation that it was impossible to conduct election in those local governments. But it is to the credit of President Muhammadu Buhari, and this we emphasized during the campaign, that all the 774 local government areas are currently fully under the control of the Nigerian Armed Forces, and the president is presiding over 774 local governments. So Atiku has to understand that those numbers are a reflection of the substantial improvement of the security situation in the northeast. If he's not familiar with it, it's because he doesn't visit home too often. Those who live there knows better. 1 million votes in Kano. In 2019, it dropped to 1.4. I would have liked to hear what Atiku think about that. As for your question about who I think, whether INEC helped PDP or APC, I don't think that is neither here or there. In my remark, I did mention how INEC in Cross River State went out of his way not only to feed government officials as ad hoc staff, but cancelled many votes in favor of one of our senatorial candidates, particularly Senator Akpororo in Akwa Ibom State, as to deny him victory. I also mentioned that if Atiku decides to go to court, that we also reserve the right to file cross petition Because there are also areas, in my local government, for example, 15 units were cancelled due to the carelessness or collaboration or mischief of an electoral officer that was deployed to my local government, knowing that that is my, you can't question that, that is my strongest hold. What did they do? They add the figures, they keep painting them, repeating them, to a point that the result sheet became so mutilated. They then went on to say that because of the alterations, which was done by them, that they cannot admit those results. They called the REC, they brought the Form 8A, which is the unit results, so that they can reconstruct exactly the result of those units. INEC declined. So we lost about 5,000 votes in my local government. If you add those votes to what finally came out in Edo, you'll probably find that we defeated PDP. So when we say that, I mean, I said so yesterday, and I don't know if some of you were there. When we talk about substantial improvement, it is not for nothing that I refuse to use the word perfect election. But if you are questioning whether overall everything taken into account, whether the outcome reflects the will of the Nigerian people, in spite of INEC or anybody in INEC, the answer is yes. We got what we got in spite of INEC, because there were a lot of petitions from our states, in Cross River State, in Akwa Ibom State, in River State, in Abia State, several states across the country, where the RECs were seen to be completely impaired, and where the government officials were paraded as hard dog staff. But, you know, man proposes, God disposes. When you have vigilant agent, I mean, I only became governor in spite of the then INEC, or that it would not because of him. So we are not necessarily at the mercy of a biased INEC. So nothing I have said here that should suggest that those reservations we have about some of those RECs who were working clearly for PDP, my position in those cases remain valid. But it's just that in spite of that, we have won. Just like 2015, in spite of the mutilation of the election result from Rivers, which the professor could not even read, because each time they hear the numbers from the Northwest, they ask data to increase, they asked Rivers to increase, and they increased the number more than 4 times. In the end, they could no longer read the result sheet. But in spite of that, Buhari won. So victory is not necessarily at the mercy of a biased institution. And that is why what matters in this election, from what I've come to see, is that those who want to contest election must make sure that they have vigilant, intelligent, and resourceful agents to protect and to monitor the conduct of a lot of the officials. Now, as for the issue of Imo, I believe if you have taken my general opening statement seriously, I think I have dealt with that. It's a report which I'm not in a position to verify, but I did say that this government has a duty to investigate every report of a wrongdoing, every act of violence, or of manipulation, or of ballot snatching. As far as I know, kidnapping is an offense in law. So if indeed anybody was kidnapped, I believe it is up to that officer, having now regained freedom, to take full advantage of his freedom to now lodge proper report. And like I said earlier, every such report should be investigated, and those involved should be brought to justice. Until we begin to see people in jail for trying to manipulate the will of the Nigerian people by interfering with free and fair election, we will keep on lamenting these incidents of abuse, of ballot snatching, etc. It was in this hall that Mr. President said he has ordered the armed forces to make sure that nobody is allowed to snatch ballot box or perpetrate act of violence and get away with it. Of course, mischief makers choose to twist the statement But that was the extent of Mr. President's commitment to ensuring that the elections are not only peaceful, that they are free of violence, and that they are fair and therefore credible. Of course, again, who opposed that statement? Who was defending Togri? It was Atiku Abubakar. And I watched a statement credited to Secondus, who said that the order that they should deal with those ballot box snatchers and those who are likely to be involved in or who are involved in election violence, that it was an attack on all Nigerians. Those of you in this hall, have you ever snatched ballot boxes? How could that be a threat to you? But because when you trace where Secondus come from, you will understand why he believed that any attack against violence, perpetrators of violence, that amount to attack on the electorate. And by his own name is Secondus. He has come second. What is his problem? Thank you very much.
On our videos, please keep commenting. If you've not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so for regular updates. Keep watching Juvenis and keep buying Juvenis.
Juvenis is published bi-monthly by Phoenix Communications Limited. For enquiries, event coverage or advert placement, call 0803 360 8271, 0805 787 1199, 0702 811 3638 or 0808 152 4499 or visit www.juvenis.phoenix.net. Juvenis Magazine, inspiring the young at heart.